All right. Hello again. It's my pleasure, and I'm delighted to introduce our first keynote presenter, Mr. Bob Ghafouri. Bob is the founder and senior managing director of Bloom, the digital strategy and transformation unit of Accenture, which integrates digital assets, analytics, software, and services to help clients drive growth and create new sources of value. So in this role, Mr. Ghafouri, Bob, oversees a global team that provides a portfolio of business and technology services to clients. Prior to his current role, Bob was Chief Client Officer of Accenture Interactive, with broad responsibility for the group's digital marketing offerings and strategy. Let's give a Scheller College warm welcome to Bob Ghafouri.
You know what Professor Lavi didn't share with you is that I joined Accenture because of a couple of alumni from Georgia Tech. So David Rowland, our chairman, Jimmy Etheridge, our CEO here of North America, Mike Sutcliffe, my boss, and who leads our digital group, actually acquired a company I started in my basement when I was a little bit older than some of the folks in this room, my 20s, focused on shopper marketing, or so retail analytics and trade optimization. So that's how I kind of came into Accenture. I'm now part of the Accenture Global Leadership Council, and we launched Bloom about 2 years ago, really with the understanding that there's this digital disruption that's impacting all of the businesses we serve at a different pace and speed, and it's also impacting the value pools that those organizations, those corporate partners, depend on to create value for their stakeholders, whether it's their shareholders, their employees, their customers, et cetera. And so Bloom was really a response to that. And what we thought was we could bring up together all the elements of Accenture and help these organizations make what we call the wise pivot. So pivot their businesses to become more relevant in a world where things are getting disrupted at a faster and faster pace. So today, I'm going to talk to you about disruption in healthcare. And so one of my other kind of side roles, I'm a venture partner at a VC in DC called Next Gen Ventures. And I was just looking through our portfolio while I was sitting over here, and we've actually invested in 7 different VCs. So we're actually actively investing in startups that are going out and disrupting different elements of the healthcare ecosystem, whether it's the payer, provider, or making things a lot better for patients when it comes to pharmaceuticals. And so I think there's a lot of dollars going into this industry. And if you think about it, there's $3.5 trillion of, in terms of our GDP is going to healthcare, and that's going upwards. A lot of that is trapped value. It's inefficiency in different elements of that system. So when venture capitalists, private equity firms, others see that, they're like, how do we target those dollars and how do we release that trapped value? So today, what I was going to do is quickly talk about my perspectives as a consumer of healthcare in terms of the market. I was going to talk a little bit about disruption and the elements of disruption and how disruptors are unleashing some of that trapped value, and then pivot and talk about the incumbents that are out there that are doing things that are unique, monetizing assets they have, and then finally close with a framework that I think a lot of the big incumbents, the actors in that ecosystem, can leverage to really think about how they frame their kind of pivot to kind of digital transformation and managing the disruption they face. So first, I'm a consumer of healthcare, just like everybody in this room. And you know, recently my mom got cancer, and went through this process. And my younger sister and I became the caregivers or the program managers, basically, of her disease, of her fight with cancer. And it's amazing. You wouldn't think that, someone with no healthcare background would have to suddenly become, 17 different types of, learn about 17 different types of specialists, learn about equipment in a hospital, in her room. But there's all these questions that came through our head as we went through that process. And it made me think, there is nothing human about the current healthcare system. There's nothing human about it. And so when you think about it, when we went through that process, there was always this question of who should we trust? Is this doctor saying the right thing? I remember we went to an oncologist's office, and in the middle of and it was just his demeanor. In the middle of our discussion around chemo, he started laughing. And then did it again, and I couldn't understand why. And then after I left, I was like, can we trust that individual? But there's a lot of people in that process that were giving us different bits of information, and some of them were conflicting. So who can we trust? How does my mom get back to normal? How does she actually get through this process and survive it? And what does life after chemo look like, and cancer look like? How do I balance all these healthcare demands with everything I'm doing at work, with my 3 kids that are under 8, all the other things I have going on? How do you balance all that and manage this for a loved one? How much will all this cost? I had no idea what the cost would be, what we were paying for the services. She was actually for over a month in a coma, so we had to go through the process of trying to understand what that costs. But what is the cost of all this? Is she getting better? Why aren't my doctor, payer, and the pharmacy in sync on anything? They're just not working together. And so I think these are all the questions that all of us are asking about healthcare. And we're wondering, why isn't this human? Why is it almost industrial? And why is our experience so limited? And then, so with the backdrop of that, that's the experience. There are other concerns as well. I mean, my 1-year-old just went, he had RSV, respiratory virus, went to a hospital for 1 night. I get this charge on my credit card. I see $1,400 from Johns Hopkins Sibley. So I texted my wife. I was like, what is this? She's like, that's our copay for the 1 night. I'm like, what did the 1 night cost? She's like, $6,500 for 1 night at the children's ward at Sibley. So so in the back of my head, I was thinking, okay, something like that. I mean, I'm okay. We can pay for it. It's fine. But if you look at the median income of an American, it's $58,000. Most are living paycheck to paycheck. 2/3 of bankruptcies are due to health care. For someone else, that could have been a lot of money. And so the system is not focused on us, the consumer, like other industries are. There's massive amounts of our wealth being transferred to healthcare, 17% of GDP. Premiums and copays are going up. And so this is the backdrop of what we're facing. But the exciting thing is a lot of the things that we think about in terms of digital disruption are opportunities to unlock this trapped value. And what I'll do first is just talk to you about what those elements of disruption are. And so the way I think about disruption and talk to CEOs and boards about it is really, there's 3 elements to disruption. The first is experience disruption. I can make an incredible experience like an Airbnb and own the travel experience end to end. And I can convince you and get your loyalty and bring you over to my brand. Even if I'm brand new, I can get you to come over. Airbnb's done that. Casper's done that. Uber's done that. They don't have some long 100-year legacy of serving customers, but they've created these incredible experiences. So customer experiences can disrupt the profit pools of existing incumbents and pivot them to, to new services. Second is business model innovation or business model disruption. So if you think about it, you don't always have to come up with the next version of AI or blockchain or whatever to disrupt an organization. I can come up with something simple. Dollar Shave Club came up with a way to deliver shaving goods to lazy guys like me through a subscription. And so what they did was they actually got rid of the distribution channel, and they mail you the razors, and they changed the revenue model. It's a monthly amount that you pay. Others are doing some things that are similar. Volvo with their Polestar cars is rethinking car ownership. They're thinking about creating a rental model where you actually pay, a monthly subscription, you get insurance, other elements, and they bring all those things together, and you actually pay one fee, but you don't buy the car. So there's innovation in terms of capital allocation, innovation in terms of distribution, innovation in terms of pricing, all those things through that model. So the second way that you can disrupt is through business model innovation. And then finally, there's ways that we can leverage technology to drive disruption. And so I'll give you a really, really simple example, and then I'll apply it later on when we talk about some healthcare examples. I was with the head of Drive Capital. He's from Sequoia. He moved to Columbus, Ohio at dinner. And he has an incredibly successful VC in Columbus. And he's come up with something called Root Insurance. They incubated it in the VC and then launched it. And he's like, Bob, I went to the insurance companies, the car insurance companies, and said, hey, the current way that you're doing, you're basically assigning price to your insurance policy is antiquated, meaning it's using a foundational set of data that's static. And so some people are covering the cost for other people, and there's a better way to do that. So he started harvesting the things that you have in your cell phone that can actually tell us whether you're going fast or slow. And he used AI to create a dynamic insurance product that basically determines for Avery and Joe a different price based on their driving attribution. And so technology is dramatically enabling us to transform how we disrupt an environment. A buddy of mine who also sold this company, Accenture, he's a mathematician. He called me, he's down in Australia, he's like, mate, we have no good kombucha down here. And I'm like, well, what? It's Steve Kirkby. I was like, well, what are you going to do about it, Steve? And he's like, I'm starting a kombucha company down in Australia. I'm like, you know nothing about kombucha. How are you going to do that? But what he did is through ecosystems and the democratized access to data analytics and the cloud, he launched that on Google Cloud. He started marketing on Instagram. He sourced, the manufacturing through a on-demand platform. And lo and behold, he sold the kombucha business, Pepsi and Coke bid, to Coke right down the street here. And so he built the largest kombucha company in Australia. And so technology also disrupts the profit pools that we see our clients depending on to create shareholder value, other types of value. And so these are the three elements that every industry we serve at Accenture is facing in terms of disruption. And I think it also applies in a big way to healthcare. So let's talk about three things, two of which I actually use. These are just three startups that I thought I'd throw on the screen. Forward Health. Has anyone heard of Forward Health? Okay, so I just decided to subscribe to it. You get a membership fee. It's primary care powered by AI. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And someone on my team said, you got to go check it out. It's like being in an Apple store, but you're in a doctor's office. So I went in, There happens to be one in Washington, D.C., where I live. I signed up. I put all my information into the Forward Health app. You go through an initial visit where they take blood, other things, and then they actually put they have these massive dashboards. So think Tesla, Apple, but for healthcare. And they put the screen up and they say, hey, based on everything we've learned from the tests we've done on you, here's the likelihood that you're going to have a heart attack. Here's the likelihood that, for me, I may be a little bit overweight from eating too many Oreos at midnight. So basically, they put together this picture of you, and they use AI and other data to kind of formulate what that looks like. And so that's when you're in the room. Then you actually have a proactive app that's telling you, and you can opt into this, when you actually need to do certain things, interventions to help. And they're tracking all different types of information through a device. And so there's devices you could sign up for. And so it's almost a proactive management of your healthcare. And so you can talk to doctors online. You can schedule visits. It's $50 a month, no insurance. And so what they're doing is they're disrupting primary care in an effective way. And the founders here, founder worked for Eric Schmidt at Google on special projects, and it's funded heavily with Eric Schmidt and some of the others. But the goal here is, can we actually disrupt healthcare in a fundamentally different way? So this is business model disruption. The second is Roman. Who's heard of Roman? Okay, so Roman is focused on guys. And it solves different problems for guys. And this is experience disruption. So their big partner is Pfizer. And so they picked a whole bunch of issues they're a big deal for guys. And they, everything from helping guys stop smoking to hair loss, which I have, it's slowly growing, to erectile dysfunction, to other issues that they deal with. You actually go in, you do an online exam, and then you can actually immediately start getting care. And what they've done is they've dramatically changed the experience for a set of issues that guys deal with that are incredibly personal and sometimes embarrassing to talk about. And they've created an incredible experience to do that. So there's no radical change in how they've, in the technology or other things that they've created, but they've just created an incredibly human experience for men for a set of issues. And this has been incredibly successful. They've raised a lot of money. They just did another round, I think 85 million. But it's an experience-led disruption in how we deliver healthcare. And then finally, Bind. Does anyone know Bind? Okay, so Bind is an insurance provider. But I'll give you a hint. So Root is an insurance provider. They're using AI and attribution from your phone to dynamically price insurance products. And Bind is using AI and a kind of simple set of services to dramatically change how we think about health insurance. And so, and you can go out there, there's massive amounts of money being spent by ecosystem partners like Amazon and others, Microsoft, Google, Apple. There's massive amounts of money going into startups, and all of them are looking at those three elements. Can we create some type of experience disruption for all the folks in this room? Can we rethink a business model and make it more relevant? Or can we use technology in some unique way, or AI, to change the dynamics of the industry? And so those are the startup folks doing that. So the question becomes, how do incumbents actually play? So any of the folks in this room that work for large corporations know that most incumbents are focused on optimizing their core products, customers, the core business. And that's what shareholders expect. They want a certain return over time, and it's incredibly difficult to pivot that kind of business and focus on disruption. And so the best example of this, and some of the folks on our strategy team, our Bloom strategy team, put this together, is Netflix. So Netflix kind of articulates the incumbent challenge in a great way. So how many people have been following, is anyone an investor in Netflix, have been following the stock, a user of Netflix? Probably everyone in this room. So Netflix stock is through the roof. They burn a ton of cash. So if I'm a competitor to Netflix, it's really too expensive to replicate, too dilutive to acquire, and if I partner with them, I'm ceding to them. And you even see this recently. AT&T has been making investments in media assets, and there's a company called Elliott Management that's come in and taken a stake in AT&T and basically said, focus on the basics and stop wasting our money on these dreams around media and new services. And so the incumbents have this fundamental challenge. How do we actually pivot, and how do we actually defend and win in an environment that has an incredibly harsh investor environment, which is preventing us from doing that and investing in these new things, and then two, an environment where our own organizations have disincentives because of the structure of those organizations to actually do things that are disruptive and transformative. And so the incumbents have a set of assets they can leverage to do this. And so what is the incumbent advantage? You can use these examples for, I'd say, a lot of the incumbents that have pivoted. And a lot of these are relevant in healthcare too. So hard assets. Can we use our physical locations to differentiate and win? So Walmart Health is a great example of this. So I was down there with the leadership team. They've actually created a health business, and they said, we're going to take this physical footprint and everything we know about creating efficiency at scale, across our retail business and our grocery business, and we're going to apply that to healthcare. And so Walmart Health was launched. The first actual Walmart Health pilot was here in Georgia. And what they're doing is they're dramatically reducing the cost associated with all the elements of healthcare. So like dental, a doctor's visit, eye care, pharmaceuticals, et cetera. And they're bringing all those together in kind of a unique way. So you can use your physical assets to differentiate and create new services. Customer relationship. So I can use the demand side of my network, my platform, to create new opportunities. A great example is Best Buy. So they've taken this massive subscriber base in you and me, and they've started building health services that they can deliver to that network. So Aging in Place is the first one. So you can leverage your customer relationships to build new services that you deliver on the supply side to the demand side of your network. I can leverage my brands. I can leverage data, like the panel said earlier, to do things that I otherwise wouldn't. And there's incumbents like Mayo that I'll talk about later that are doing that. Data monetization isn't just about selling that data to third parties. It's about creating new services, new products that are powered by that data, like Root has. And then finally, I can use decades of institutional knowledge, Mayo's doing this, to create a platform to serve the planet and provide kind of relevant healthcare at a broader scale, and I'll talk about examples. So incumbents can use assets that they have, and those assets can be undervalued to create new services that defend and win against the disruption they face. And so what are three examples that I wanted to cover? The first is Mayo Clinic. So we did some work with the folks up at Mayo, and one of our health innovation leaders, Brian Callis, was involved with this. what Mayo wanted to do was, what are they known for? They're known for as a destination for serious complex diseases, and they wanted to determine whether they could build a platform like Airbnb, but to serve the world and solve for those need states. And so Mayo went out and they've been in the process of building out that platform. But if you think about it, there's everything from diagnosis to other forms of care can happen digitally now through video, FaceTime, chat, other mechanisms, digital tools. And so Mayo's done that, and I think it's fairly unique. I don't think I've seen anything else like this. But they have an innovative team of leaders, and they're looking really broadly at that goal. Can we solve some of those complex, serious disease states and do that for everyone, all 7.5 billion of us? Comcast, basically, if you look at Comcast's business, what's happening? OTT, over-the-top services, are dramatically reducing the profit pool they have from subscriptions. So people aren't willing to spend $150 on a cable bundle anymore. They're going over the top with Netflix and other things and Apple TV, and they're dramatically reducing the cost they spend on that. So Comcast has 85 million households, and they have a two-sided network, proprietary, that's not much different than Amazon's or any other two-sided network. So the question became, can we build a platform business that provides other types of services to those households? So media services, they're first. And so with Comcast Health and the Quill partnership that they have with the payer, what they're doing is trying to figure out what are the services that they actually launch. And they've done that in a quick way. The first one's aging in place. So they've come up with some in-home services using the Google AI Cloud to bring those to life. And they're thinking about other services like hospital at home, et cetera, that can really extend that. So Comcast is an incumbent that's really thinking about healthcare in a unique way and leveraging the demand side of their network, these 85 million households, to make that real. And then finally, Kaiser. I really like Kaiser Permanente. I like the people there, the leadership, their vision. And if you look at Kaiser, what I think is unique with them is that they're coming up with an engagement ecosystem, and they have the advantage of being a payer and provider, a digital engagement ecosystem that's more than just digital. It converges physical and digital into what we call a service experience. And so they combine tech and touch, and everything from the base application that has alerts, your appointments, your medical record, to some of the additional apps they have. They have a video doc app that lets you actually have a video call with your doctor. They have a health wealth app that lets you monitor your spending. What they're doing is they're building a set of services, digital services, that transforms that experience for all of us and makes it more human. So I think Kaiser's doing some cool things that are kind of a step above, that are differentiated. And you could easily see an extension of that. I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't replicate Ford, right? There's no reason why they couldn't get into preventative care through through devices like the one I have on my arm. But they can start getting there, and they can start building the alerts and using AI to actually curate the experience you want to have with your healthcare provider. So Kaiser's another great example. And so all these incumbents are using assets they have that could be undervalued to create new services, new products, launch new businesses that let them defend and win against the disruption they face. So how do we think about digital transformation, and how do we frame digital transformation in a way that's consumable to the C-suites, the CEOs and other senior leaders we serve, and the boards they serve and investors they serve. And it's really, really hard. I'll give you an example. If you look at the pivot that Microsoft made to Azure and LinkedIn and some of the other new services, that pivot caused them to disrupt their existing value pool, Windows, which is incredibly high margin. And without a founder lurking around, it would be really hard to make that pivot as a hired CEO. It's just really hard to do because the investors want you to focus on the next quarter. Because you and I, as the investors in those funds, want the same thing. We want a return immediately. And so founder-supported companies like Walmart with the Walton family, Gates and Microsoft, Amazon and Bezos have a disadvantage that they can focus on a longer-term horizon. And so the other companies that have hired CEOs, you have to give them a framework for how they think about digital disruption, transformation. And we think of that in terms of three kind of horizons of transformation. The first horizon of transformation is the core, and we call them brilliant basics. Are there basic fundamental things, low risk, low reward, but quick wins, that an organization can put in place to unleash trap value in the core business and make a step change in how they deliver a great experience to you and I. And so those are core things like Horizon 1. So an example of a Horizon 1 may be just a more pleasant experience on a website with a company like Kaiser Permanente that enables us to just have a better experience with them. A Horizon 1 activity can also be focused on what we call digitization. So making a step change improvement in using digital technologies to make a step change improvement in how we reduce costs or improve revenue. So that's Horizon 1. Horizon 2 is about extensions to the core, adjacencies to the core. We're not launching a new business using assets from our core, but what we're doing is we're extending the S-curve of our core business through new capabilities and services. And an example of that, I think, that's probably most relevant, Berkshire Hathaway launched 3 Insurance. This could easily be a health insurance attacker as well. But 3 Insurance, in essence, is an SMB insurance provider. They bundle insurance for you as an SMB. There's no broker, so there's a disruption with the broker. And Berkshire is the reinsurance engine for that. So they've launched 3 Insurance. You go to the website. It's 3-page policy. There's no broker, and you sign up. And it's 100% digital. What does that do? It extends the S-curve of their business because they release a massive amount of trap value that sits with those brokers. They simplify and bundle the products in a different way, and they rethink what they're offering. Now, and that's an adjacency. So we're creating an adjacency to our core market product or service, and that's kind of a Horizon 2 activity. And then finally, a Horizon 3 activity is actually creating a disruptive business model. And this one's a lot harder for incumbent organizations. But can we take, for example, data and create a new business that complements our core? So Loblaw's done this with Loblaw Media. So they've taken all the data and attribution, shopper attribution about you and I. They've applied a set of algorithms on top of that. And they've created a framework, a platform that allows you to target audiences, execute campaigns on inventory they own, as well as on Facebook and Instagram, and then measure those campaigns through one interface. And so Loblaw Media competes against Amazon Media and Google Marketing or DoubleClick and Walmart's Media Exchange. But they were able to make that pivot and create a complementary business. And so it is possible, but those things in Horizon 3 are higher risk, higher reward. And a lot of times, the bets you're making there will most likely not succeed. Pacific Life launched Swell Insurance. So I was out there giving a keynote to their leadership team. Swell Insurance, they decided to close down. Swell Insurance was a digital attacker in the insurance space. They closed it down, but they took the assets from that and applied it to their entire business and then pivoted their business. And so Horizon 3 things are higher risk. They may be higher reward, but your board and the investors that you rely on may see that as something they don't want you to do, similar to AT&T or Pacific Life or others. And so generally what we say is you map the opportunities in something like this so we can actually say, hey, here's what we're going to be focused on, people on our team. Here's what we're going to be focused on, board. Here's what we're going to be focused on, the other C-suite leaders, suppliers, partners, customers. And the notional value of these elements can be quantified, and we can measure our pivot to becoming a digital business. So that's the last element of what I wanted to share. So basically, I wanted to talk to you broadly about disruption, some of the disruptors we're seeing in healthcare, some of the things, assets our incumbents can leverage, and then examples of how you'd frame that. So with that, I'll open it up to questions if there are any.
Questions? A couple quick questions, please.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
So when you are making investments, whether it be in your venture fund or elsewhere, what do you look for to see whether somebody you think can be successful in going through this type of disruptive model that you're describing?
Well, one, I look for the team. Like at the end of the day, it boils down to whether the team can pivot, and the DNA of the startup team, whether it's inside of a big company or in a startup. I think that's essential. Two, I look for the potential trap value that's being released. How big is that? And then three, I look for what's the likelihood that trap value can be released. And it's incredibly complex in healthcare, as a lot of the folks in the panel described. So the easiest area of trap value to release in healthcare is self-funded corporate insurance programs like Accenture. So we spend about $500 million, I think, on our self-funded program, and we use a third-party payer to administer that program. Those are the biggest, kind of rocks, because companies like Accenture are always looking for more efficiency, reduce their costs. So if you're and the Comcast idea is targeted at those corporate dollars. Amazon just launched their Amazon Care, I think it's called. I don't know if you guys have seen that. So it's a care-based service for Amazon employees in the Seattle area, which creates a set of AI capabilities, mobile apps, teledoc, et cetera, in-home clinician-type services. And it's aimed at the amount that Amazon's spending on healthcare. They've also jumped in with JPMC, Amazon, and Berkshire have jumped in to kind of do something similar. So the spend that the 300 largest companies have these self-funded programs, that spend is going up, 15% a year, some amount. That is a trap value that's easy to get at. Other elements of the trap value are incredibly hard. A hospital doesn't want to reduce its revenue, right? And so, go after the trap value that can release quickly is the third element. I'm way over, but yeah.
One last question.
Hi, Bob. My name is Emily Malberger, and thank you so much for being here today. Do you think that innovation has changed at all as we're entering into the market of disruption? And do you think that incumbents have the skills to innovate, to be disruptors?
Yeah, good question. So I think all of us have the skills to be disruptors or create some new service, et cetera. I mean, I created Bloom inside of a $40 billion company. So I think that exists. You may have to complement that talent with external talent, and kind of make sure there's a mix. You don't want to, HSBC launched a B2B commerce platform in India and China for, kind of secure commerce. It's an issue there. And you go to the office and you have, it's a replication of the HSBC parent. Like there's assistants sitting out front, there's closed offices, everyone has their, tribes within the startup. The startup has to operate, think differently. It has to be able to pivot quickly. But I think the DNA of an entrepreneur is in all of us.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really
Thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.